Is also sitting down with Bret Baier, telling him U.S. combat troops will remain on the Korean peninsula.
Is the military drawing down in South Korea? You kind of hinted at that. And is there going to be this kind of tit for tat?
No, it's not drawing down at all. In fact, honestly, it was never discussed. I'm sure he'd like that. It was never on the table. We sort of understood that was never on the table. With that being understood and you know, you ask me a question like that, I would love to get the military out as soon as we can because it costs a lot of money, and a lot of money for us. We don't get paid fully for that military, which, you know, I'll be talking to South Korea about. But we have 32,000 soldiers in South Korea. I'd like to get them home. I would like to, but it is not on the table right now. At the appropriate time, it will be.
The full interview airs on Special Report tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Over in South Korea, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. wants to see Kim Jong-un making progress towards denuclearization before the end of Trump's first term. This while the president is taking aim at the mainstream media for negative coverage of his landmark sit-down. Tweeting, "So funny to watch the fake news, especially NBC and CNN. They are fighting hard to downplay the deal with North Korea. 500 days ago, they would have begged for this deal. Looked like war would break out. Our country's biggest enemy is the fake news so easily promulgated by fools." Greg, you're an expert in promulgated by fools.
Yeah, I am. You know, we're all here. Everybody here by nature is skeptical. We're skeptical about everything. And I find it, I guess, funny that the least skeptical people on earth are demanding that we be skeptical. So these are the people that smear you if you are skeptical about Cuba or climate change models or stats on mass shootings or gun control talking points, if you're skeptical about the Paris Accords, if you're skeptical about Iran, if you're skeptical about communism, socialism, Venezuela, if you're skeptical about that, you're heartless. But you must be skeptical about this. Well, we're already there. We've always been skeptical. If you are a conservative or a libertarian, you're born skeptical. I'm going to pull Dana Perino. I had Michael Malice on my podcast today, and you know what he tweeted? Something very, very good. He also said this on my show, which is, you can find it. "If you think the possibility of peace is worse than the possibility of war, there must be something wrong with you." And he says that he has a good metaphor that North Korea is like a hostage situation. And we've said that before. There's 28 million, 27 million hostages. The protocol is you try to get the hostage taker to put his gun down. And you do that always first by dialogue. Right. And then whether that means reassuring him with a film, that might work. But that's how you do it. First, you want to save the people. And it is. There are people. It's terrible in North Korea. They have concentration camps. They had genocide in the 90s. It's a ruthless regime. That tells you something. Containment doesn't work. Containment doesn't make the hostages feel really good.
No, it holds the evil in.
Yeah, this could, I mean, a hostage might actually think Trump is saving me.
Yeah. All right, Dana, so what do you make now in terms of we've had some time since this historic summit and the meeting to kind of see some of the fallout, the discussion, people's, take different sides in terms of their opinion of what they think transpired?
Well, I think it's still a net plus, right, for the president and for the world. Like, there is still hope. There is skepticism, but I think that it's important to note that the skepticism isn't necessarily about President Trump, unless you're like just an anti-Trump person. The skepticism is about North Korea and Kim Jong-un because the regime that's repeatedly lied. They've repeatedly agreed to similar things like what they agreed to in the communique the other day with the president. That back in 1996 and 2000 and then in 2005 and then 2006. So that's repeated. So I think the skepticism, one, journalists are skeptical, two, conservatives are skeptical, but three, the skepticism is also about the North Koreans, just as it was about the Iranians. I also think that in some ways there is just this tribal nature of who you're going to trust. If you are a Democrat and you trusted Obama, you thought the Iran deal was a really good one, and you also might think that the personnel that they had, like Secretary John Kerry, you had a lot of trust in him. Conservatives did not. And I think you're just seeing the mirror image of that now. So Republicans will say, I trust President Trump. I think he knows what he's doing. I mean, we didn't get it all in one day. We never expected that. But they also respect the people that work for him. So John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. Whereas it's just on the other side, it would just be back and forth. I also think, though, that when it comes to the cost to Americans to have our troops in South Korea and in the region, and to do these exercises, it's not just that it's input out. It's not just like a lost cause. I do think that it is in our strategic national interest for us to keep a presence there, because you don't want to have to revamp it back up, especially because we know that there are always dangers lurking around the corner.
Okay. Now, Jesse, you know, obviously, and Dana brings up a good point about sort of the tribalism of it. And there's people, yes, that do trust, you know, President Trump, because also perhaps they've looked at the record of what he has promised and what he has delivered in our, is it okay these days to be optimistic about hopefully having, you know, good outcomes? Trust but verify.
Right, and what happened during the Obama administration? I mean, they gave billions of cash to the Ayatollah. They had a really bad trade with Bergdahl, handed over 5 top Taliban members. They botched the Paris climate deal. They botched TPP. They botched pretty much everything they touched, the Iraq Cessation of Forces Agreement. And then Trump comes in to try to broker a peace deal, gives up almost nothing. And the same people that praised Obama now are complaining. I mean, Clinton and Carter went over there and built 2 nuclear reactors, gave them millions of dollars. What happened just the other day? I think Obama gave Trump the keys to the White House and said, oh, yeah, by the way, I've done nothing on North Korea for 8 years, but now it's the biggest problem. You're going to have to deal with it. Good luck. So Trump tries to step up and bring peace to the peninsula, and all he hears is 100% negativity. It just destroys the media narrative that he's this big warmonger when he goes there to make peace. And they don't want to give him any credit for trying to get peace. I'm not saying it's a done deal. It's far from a done deal. There's a potential here for a great deal. But all the deputies now have to hammer out the details. There's no, verification. There's no inspections. The phase out is still up in the air. We don't know whether they're going to destroy or when they're going to destroy all these facilities. That all has to be hammered out. But the spirit of the summit was very strong, and the political will between the 2 leaders appears to be very positive. And I think now we let the little guys hammer it out, and we'll see what happens.
Juan, so the president used, rhetoric that some thought was inflammatory, but he was quite specific in saying that he feels that played a part in terms of bringing North Korea to the table, where ultimately, he used diplomacy to be able to achieve these ends.
I think I read it differently, Kimber. I think he said he regretted some of the language that he's used in the past.
But he also said that he thought it was helpful in getting them to this point.
No, I think he said he regretted and understood that it was provocative language, is I think what he said. But to the larger point here, I think the big news today is, you know what? The Pentagon didn't know that he was offering to give up military exercises with the South Koreans, and maybe most importantly, the South Koreans didn't know it. And the South Koreans have played a key role in trying to make this deal happen, and they're surprised too. So what you have is kind of seat of the pants, Donald Trump working by the gut, say, oh, I think this will work, this will work. What about our allies? I mean, this is something that, when you think about it, you say, as everybody else on the panel has talked about, let's go back and look at past criticism of something like the Iran deal. Oh my gosh, at that point, it was said that this was evidence of Obama's inexperience, that he was a celebrity president, didn't understand the threats the world faced. Of course, he got a deal that stopped Iran from developing nuclear weapons. What we have here is no such thing from President, no guarantee, no method of verification, nobody on the ground, no assurances, no details.
It's been 2 days,
so
Juan. Obama had 2 years.
I'm sorry.
It just started.
I'm sorry. There was a signed deal, Jesse, and that's what the deal said. We stopped.
They just started
we stopped, and nothing else. Nothing from the North Koreans. So what you get is when Obama sat down and said, and I think this is 2007, in the midst of his campaign, he said, I'm willing to meet with people who represent repressive regimes because it's an opportunity to build bridges, to talk. Oh my goodness, the conservatives, the Republicans said, what is he doing? He's coddling our enemies and he's alienating our allies. When Trump does it, oh, this is historic, and the American media is the enemy. Talk about hypocrisy.
Can I explain just the difference between, I think when you have a strong, muscular, pro-American president like Donald Trump, when he is willing to sit down and talk to America's enemies, there's a different posture there. There's a difference between someone like that and someone like Obama, who did an apology tour, who talked down American greatness and American exceptionalism, and his willingness to go and talk to America's enemies and not cut a great vigilant deal. This is the difference.
Or doing
And
an-
I think the American people
Or doing
see
an
that.
apology tour.
Well, let
right?
me just say then, I guess it
There's
comes
suspicion.
down, the way you guys see it is it's just team sports. It's just if you like Obama, you like this. If you like Trump, you like this. But I think let's get away from that for a second. Let's just look at what the deal entails. And what you see is, and we talked about this a moment ago, 130,000 people living in South Korean gulags at this moment. So our tough, strong president, there's nothing in the
What did
deal.
you
Well,
expect
he had
in
8 years to do
48
something
hours?
about the
It's
gulags.
ridiculous.
Obama
I
did
see.
nothing.
I think that, I mean,
You can't believe that anyone complained about actually something that happened that was very favorable for this country, for North Koreans, for South Koreans, for the world in general. Give a chance for this to work. You don't like it if you use fire and fury. You don't like it if we go to war. You don't like it if we sit down and engage in diplomatic relations.
Of course I
Dana?
do. I like that.
You want to go for?
No, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is that if you are skeptical of all of this and you're looking for somebody that you might be able to look to that you respect and you trust, that is not a partisan but that is an expert in the region, Victor Cha is somebody who is a Georgetown professor, and he was going to, well, he's worked in the government as well, but he was going to be President Trump's ambassador to South Korea. That didn't end up working out because there's some differences. If you read his op-ed today in the New York Times, you would see he's actually pretty upbeat. He likes the strategy. He thinks that it's all headed in the right direction. Of course, there's a list of all the complicated questions that are yet to be answered. But overall, at this point, he's quite upbeat and positive. And if you're just looking for someone who's not a partisan and their take on it, I think he's a good one.
And I'm not, it's not totally tribal with me, Juan. I'm a little concerned about suspending the war games or quote unquote military readiness preparation. I think you need to be prepared for the North Koreans, and that's why you have them. They're defensive in posture. They see them, the North Koreans, as offensive. They're there just in case something happens and the North invades, and we want our allies to be prepared and on point so we can ratchet those back up at any time. The big one doesn't come till spring 2019. So I understand why he did it, in order to kind of encourage goodwill there. But it's not something I'm, crazy about happening. I want these exercises to continue. I think they're important.
We
But
get
so
Greg in, please.
why is the president then saying, "Oh, Kim is a
I'm trying.
funny guy"?
Well, he's funny. He's funny looking.
He's trustworthy.
All right, Greggins.
I just find it interesting that the same people who have spent decades pleading for dialogue are now having one delivered with a giant bow. And I think that's what really hurts, is that Trump is delivering what liberals have been promising and claiming is their expertise. And I think it disturbs and destroys their soul to see. I mean, it's amazing to me to see how many people are actually against peace. And to return to the analogy of hostages, there are hostages in that country, right? What President Trump is doing is negotiating with the hostage taker, which is exactly the protocol that you do. And if it doesn't work, you know that Trump gave the hard sell. He exhausted every option before you go in there and rescue the hostages. And that's the point. Rescuing the hostages means they're going to die. This is actually the only way that you can do it. And I don't know. I think I am optimistic about it because I think that Trump is getting the North Korea regime to think past the sale. He's like a car salesman. He got Kim into the Corvette for the test drive.
Yes.
That video is brilliant. What that and hats off to, I guess it was Bolton's team who did that video. But the fact is, that was the Corvette. They got Kim to get the feel of what it's like to be in an American car named Freedom.
Yeah, well, and they showed him he brought him, look at my car. He checked out the beast. He went outside to take a
new
look
car
inside.
smell.
Yes, exactly. And Dana, you made that point about the film. You'd be curious to see in years going forward whether or not CIA had some intel to say that would be persuasive.
Definitely.
In the art of the deal.
If they'll ever tell us.
President Trump's popularity with voters on full display during key primary races. What it means for Democrats in the midterms. Coming up next. Stay with us.
President Trump's influence appearing to loom large over key primary races. In South Carolina, Trump critic Mark Sanford losing his congressional race to Katie Arrington, who ran a campaign highlighting her opponent's criticisms of the president. Trump reviving Sanford's 2009 scandal just hours before the polls closed, tweeting, He's better off in Argentina. And in Virginia, Trump supporter Corey Stewart edging out his primary opponent in that Senate primary race. He'll next face off against Hillary Clinton's former running mate, Senator Tim Kaine. So could the Trump effect mean more trouble for Democrats this fall? Jesse, what do you think?
Well, my favorite, actually I should say second favorite Democrat, Doug Schoen, has a good piece, and its title is "Attacking Trump is Now a Losing Strategy in Both Parties." That's the takeaway from Tuesday's primaries. And he highlights a bunch of moderate, not fringe, resistant type of candidates. They're mostly women, actually, in Virginia running for Congress, and former CIA officers, ex-Navy people, and they're not super
Democrats.
vicious. Yes,
Yeah.
Democrat. They're not super vicious Democrat Trump haters, and they're doing very well. So that could, bode well for Democrats going into the 2018. Now, if you look at the approval ratings for President Trump, he's at 87% approval with Republicans, and with independents, he's above board, 49%, which is pretty good. If you look at President Obama at the same time of his presidency, going into the midterms around June, he had about 10% less support among Democrats, and he was 15 points underwater with independents. And you remember that was a huge Republican wave there. The economy is doing great, and you have the summit in Singapore, which is giving him headwinds on foreign policy. And the map, the Democrats are competing in some serious red states that Trump won. I still think it's a very tough race for Democrats.
With that, the numbers that Jesse's mentioning, and so if President Trump gets above 50% with independents, which is possible after this summit and the days, and I don't know if that lasts, but that certainly is a possible thing, then it makes it even harder to attack the president, because if you have a president that's above 50, you don't want to kick him, you want to kick down. So if you want to drive his numbers down, that might be difficult in this summer if they actually get some things done.
Great point, and an important one that I'm sure everyone is paying attention to. I think these results were very strong, very favorable for not just the GOP but Trump's political party, which is the Republican Party now, because he's really done well for the party. People that have been supportive of him are favoring very well. This is great, for the midterm elections coming up, and the Democrats need to pay attention. I think that is a very key litmus test that we saw coming out of the results last night. And when you look at these numbers and the strong turnout, showing that they're motivated in light of the strong economic numbers, immigration policy, border security, all of the things that have boded very well for President Trump and his policies.
Greg, is it possible for somebody like a Mark Sanford, who is a very conservative guy and had gone through all that he had gone through after the trip to Argentina, and the hiking in the woods or whatever, then he was a congressman. He was actually quite popular until this past year. And he's going to be on The Story tonight with Martha McCallum, by the way. Is it possible for these candidates to try to separate President Trump's rhetoric from the tactics and actually try to run on that?
It's a very good point. The Trump presidency is how my wife packs for 3 days. She packs for a month. So he has packed 2 terms into 17 months.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at all the achievements, you have Gorsuch taxes, North Korea, ISIS, jobs, the economy, but you also have the tweeting, and you have these the media constantly generating and magnifying things that occurred before the election, whether it's Russia or whatever. So you've got all this stuff going on, and I think that affects people's emotions in a way that they feel that they're afraid to support the president, and it's wrong. Here, I use this rowboat metaphor. If you like how the country's going, you get in the boat and you row, because it looks like there's safe waters ahead. If you don't like the direction of the boat, you can't row. What's challenging for these never-Trumpers and these anti-Trumpers is the growing realization that the water is great. The water looks really smooth, and good things are happening. It's a golden age. Why aren't you going to row? Mark Sanford, why aren't you rowing? Who's the other dude? Corker, why aren't you rowing? What do you got against what's happening? That's the question. What is bothering you? It's his personality. It's Trump's personality. That's not enough. You don't have to like the guy. You're not marrying the guy.
So they can leave or they can lose, but they've kept to their principles. So there's that. It's not all bad news for Democrats. In Ohio, the Senate and the governor's races have all looked really good for the Democrats at this point, in Ohio being such a key state, and President Trump won it by 8 points. So I'm
Right.
throwing you a little carrot there.
Well, you don't need to. I mean, because so to my mind, you look at someone like Sanford, and this morning he says he has no regrets about anything that he said, including, hey, what about transparency? Where are your tax returns? He said Trump is a candidate, a president who fans the flames of racial intolerance. And he said, you know, it's really on Republicans to at some point stand up for their principles, because, you know, it's not a matter of clear sailing when you say, oh, you know, we were the party of free trade, and you see trade wars starting around the world. Or, you know what, we were the party of immigration, and especially legal immigration, and you see immigrants being demonized left and right. Or we're the party that looks out for people, looks out for the working man. Oh, but we're going to take away your health care plan, and we're not going to defend it, even though that's the tradition. Oh, no. We're going to do it. We've tried to destroy Obamacare. We failed. We have no other plan. So I think, you know, what really struck
Was
me,
Sanford for all those things or against those things?
Yeah, right.
you know what really struck me was the win by Corey Stewart in Virginia, Dana. Because Corey Stewart's a guy who loves Confederate monuments, right? He's a guy who, you know, I was surprised. I thought Ed Gillespie is a tremendous candidate for Republicans. Ed Gillespie squeaked by against Corey Stewart because Corey Stewart said, I'm a Trump guy. And then guess what? He lost.
Yeah.
Just really quick, I mean, you said about President Trump fanning racial flames of injustice, but quite the contrary. If you look at even like unemployment numbers and job satisfaction amongst blacks, Hispanics, and women, they're at a record, you know, low in terms of them being able to be satisfied with the party, with the president, and having jobs.
I just know that the facts are, you look at what not only blacks but Latinos say about President Trump, Kimberly.
I don't know.
Highly critical.
I'm
and
one
here you
here.
have Mark Sanford, who's a real conservative Republican from South Carolina.
You guys
talking
are out there
about it.
pushing me because we have lots of other stuff.
But we can't forget why Sanford is where he is. He can't be riding in on a high horse on this one. Go hiking.
All right, a war of words erupting between, well, but that would mean that other people would have to answer for their past things. But anyway, DOJ and the Republican lawmakers having a fight over allegations of intimidation. We'll explain next.
Trailer park truck stop, faded little map dots, New York to know just where to find you.
High drama on Capitol Hill ahead of tomorrow's release of the Justice Department's IG report on the Clinton email investigation. The fallout continues over a stunning Fox News report. Newly obtained emails claim Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein once threatened to subpoena emails, phone records, and other documents belonging to House Republicans and their staffers in the Russia probe. GOP lawmakers are now blasting the DOJ, accusing the department of intimidation. Attorney General Jeff Sessions denies the allegations.
I'm confident that Deputy Rosenstein, 28 years in the Department of Justice, did not improperly threaten anyone on that occasion. But we do believe that we have tried to be cooperative with them.
The AG's comments have outraged some lawmakers, including House Oversight Committee member Jim Jordan.
You're almost flabbergasted. I mean, what is the Attorney General saying? Rod Rosenstein hasn't complied with Devin Nunes' subpoena, hasn't complied with Chairman Goodlatte's subpoena.
All right, Kimberly, this just seems like a big turf war now. You know, they're just, the DOJ is protecting their people. They probably did some bad things. They don't want it to get out. And the House Oversight Committee just wants some information, and they're just threatening each other. Where is this going?
It's a little bit of a turf war and posturing, you know, back and forth. You're curious what the truth really is in regard to this situation. But I keep thinking about when people say, well, what about Sessions and President Trump? Should he, you know, remove just Sessions and what? Then Rosenstein goes in his way? I don't think so. But of course, he's going to try to protect in a good way and represent his people. Jeff Sessions is. I don't think that he has a specific knowledge of any untoward or inappropriate behavior or activities. But, you know, that's what, you know, investigations are for.
He could have said, you know, this is serious and we'll take a look at it. He didn't say that, which kind of surprised me. One, if Eric Holder had threatened to subpoena some congressional staffers and, you know, some House Republicans or even Democrats, that'd be pretty big news.
Imagine, I think the Republicans would have held him in contempt.
Yeah, maybe that might happen to Rosenstein.
I think that's exactly why he said what he said, which is being misinterpreted. He said, if you guys are going to threaten me with contempt because they were putting pressure on him for these documents and the like, he said, well, then, you know what, then there would be a necessity for people to subpoena your text.
So
your
it wasn't
emails,
a threat?
No, it's just saying, you think you guys are the only ones with the upper hand here, and you can just beat up the Justice Department, undermine Mueller, defame
They
Comey,
do have
defame Sessions
authority
there.
for congressional oversight. They do have that oversight authority.
Right, but you don't have the right to try to undermine and somehow demean or demagogue and go on. And I remember Devin Nunes, what is it, 2 weeks ago, Jesse, we're talking about Spygate. Where's that? Like, gone. What about, Devin Nunes? Obama was tapping President Trump's campaign. Where's that? Gone. So at some point, I think what you see is Sessions and Rosenstein saying, we're going to do our investigation. We're Trump appointees, and we are trustworthy people. We have some integrity. 28 years for Rosenstein. And they just get fed up with this.
You want to know why stuff is gone, Poof? It's because you can't get any information out of the DOJ. I mean, they've asked so many questions about everything regarding the abuses that took place, allegedly, and they can't get any info.
Well, I do think it's all this is traditional. The founding fathers knew that this would happen. That's why they set up the 3 branches of government, and they let them fight it out. I do think that, I've been a House staffer, I've been a DOJ staffer, and I've been a White House staffer.
Wow.
And all those things, this is completely overwrought, and it's not the most important thing that ever happened. It's not the most important thing going on in the world. But I will say this, that the House Republicans should just think a little bit about what it would be like with the Justice Department having to answer questions and letters and turning over documents if the House flips in November, because I've had to deal with that too. In 2006, when the Democrats took back over, we spent almost an inordinate amount of time, 60% of our time, having to deal with document requests from Democrats on Capitol Hill.
It never ends, no matter who's in power, Greg.
This is the world's longest game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yes.
Rock is collusion, paper is Hillary's email, and scissors is the tool that I want to jam in my eye whenever we do this topic. It is the most overdue baby on the planet. And we're all sitting in the waiting room waiting to just induce labor. Let's get this thing over with so we can talk about other things.
All right. IG report, the baby.
I groan. Stands for I groan.
Tomorrow.
But listen to this. Alec Baldwin making some shocking political announcement. We'll tell you what it is next.
America, our prayers have been answered. Alec Baldwin says if he ran for president, he'd win.
If I ran, I would win.
You would?
I would absolutely win.
Then why don't you run?
1,000%.
Why don't you run for president as Donald Trump? That way everyone will have everything.
If I ran for president, I would win. Hands down, I would win.
Because you would
It would be
not...
the funniest, most exciting,
when are you
most
gonna...
crazy campaign.
Oh, God.
Yes. This, friends, is the election this country needs and the media deserves. Could you ask for a better matchup? Donald Trump and a guy who makes a living as Donald Trump. And although he's never run a business, he has played someone who has. Did anyone see Boss Baby?
Oh, that's
It's a great film. I kid Baldwin, he's way more than an impersonator. He's an actor. And he's got more in common with Trump than he thinks. He's a famous, blustery, ego-driven New Yorker. And he cares. Hopefully enough to appoint Sean Penn as his running mate. That was great. But here's the big point, Alec, and I know you're watching. You hate this president and you fear where the country is headed. And it makes it hard to remember your lines. You see what it does to your friends.
Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. Yes.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're a mess. All of your friends are destroying themselves. So you've got to run. You've got to do it for them before they lose it completely. If you feel that strongly about stopping Trump, why stay on the sidelines like a coward? And if not you, then who? Have you seen the Democrats? A bunch of hopeless stiffs. And Oprah. But you're the only hope your party has. There's no one better. That's why I'm starting the Draft Alec 2020 campaign. Don't I have a little button? There it is. I invite viewers to join. Let's make him the Democratic nominee. Because, Alec, you've taken your shots. Time to settle this once and for all. The only reason why you won't is because you're scared of losing. But what did you just say before?
If I ran for president, I would win. Hands down, I would win.
So what's keeping you? All right, Dana.
I love
this
it.
is exactly what we need.
I think I agree. Let's have somebody from Hollywood run.
Yes.
And settle this question.
And if he is such a patriot and believes in his heart that Trump is evil, he's the man to stop him.
Absolutely. Hashtag 2020 Alec Baldwin.
Juan, come on. You know he's an entertainer. He had a TV show. He's like Trump. This is what the Democrats need.
You ever see that film, Idiocracy?
Yes, it's one of my favorites.
We have devolved. So now we're going to have two people totally unqualified. The Democrats will say, well, the Republican was unqualified, just a celebrity, just a TV guy, knows nothing. And he goes off and he runs and he won.
Mm-hmm.
So Alec Baldwin says, hey, I'm a better entertainer. I'm a better actor. So I can beat him hands down. I mean, he said he thinks that Trump will fire Mueller. He said he thinks that Trump just said to Kim at the summit, oh, just say you're going to denuclearize because I need that for my reelection. So, I mean, it's like an absurdity. I mean, it's like a joke. But the thing is, we're all living through it.
Yeah, I think I could see a ticket, Kimberly.
Yes.
I could see it. And he is the face of the resistance. I mean, he plays Trump every Saturday.
Yeah, so you're saying, saddle up.
Yes.
Come on, cowboy. If you think you're
put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. And when you look at the cast of characters of alternatives in the Democratic Party, who are you going to have? I mean, when you think about it, I mean, would Sean Penn be on the lead of that ticket or Baldwin? Who would you have? Besides, I mean, the only one actually probably is like Oprah Winfrey. She would be good and normal. But other than that, Alec Baldwin would be absolutely entertaining.
Jesse, what can you say?
I would say we finally found a candidate that hates reporters more than Trump. Didn't Baldwin punch reporters in the face and smash their cameras? Trump hasn't even done that. I listened to the interview live. I love Howard, Baba Booey. And Howard was very tough and very fair. He didn't really take a side. But this guy's obsessed with Trump. He was on with Howard for an hour and a half, kept bringing the conversation back to Mueller. He thinks they're these secret apprentice tapes that are long lost that show Trump saying all this stuff. But I do think, and just looking at him, he looks like a president. I actually kind of like him when I listen to him. Look at Baldwin. I mean, I can see that guy in the Oval Office. He did joke that if he did run for president, he'd spend the entire summer in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
So I don't know how serious he is. He did say he's not running because he said his wife wouldn't be with him.
What about
That's going to ruin the Hamptons.
Well, Trump has executive time. He spends the mornings in the White House bedroom.
The similarities. He hosts TV shows like our president. He's a brash New Yorker.
Great hair.
He's known among the ladies.
Great hair.
Huge ego and a colorful past. I just don't know why. If you know 100% or 1,000% that you can win,
then run.
Then run. I mean, what is it, Alec? I know he watches this show. I heard that this is his favorite show.
Is that
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm his favorite host. I heard that too.
I can tell.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Could the Mecca of liberalism, also known as California, be headed for a big breakup? Find out next.
A controversial plan that could radically change our political landscape getting the green light. The so-called Cal 3 proposal to split California into 3 states, gaining enough support now to make it onto the ballot this November. This plan would divide the Golden State into coastal areas that would be called California. Then Northern California would be a separate entity, and then Southern California, another entity, the third. The billionaire behind the initiative says it would improve government and lower taxes. But reality check, it faces very long odds. What do you think, Kimberly? You're a Californian.
Yeah, I think this is so nutty. It's so crazy to me. Can you even imagine? I grew up and spent, majority of my life there, dividing it into 3, and everyone's like, well, is LA part of California or Southern California? No, further down would be Southern California. I mean, what is going on over there? The place is completely falling apart besides the homeless camps it's unbelievable. So I don't know why they think this is a good idea, but it just goes to show you it's like run amok in California. Something like this actually made it on the ballot. Like, okay, good luck with that.
But you just answered your own question. Why are they doing this? Mm-hmm. It is because what you just described. They're the rich.
People don't want to deal with
big government has failed the non-rich, right? California looks like the set of Mad Max. It's overrun with filth, drug paraphernalia, higher crime, and disease everywhere. Hollywood loves to make dystopian shows. They're living above a dystopia. They could sit in their little castles in the sky while the rest of us in California have to, go near overpasses, which, underneath are encampments buffeted by hills of feces. It's which Pelosi calls curbside living. That's the crime. My point is that's why they should split. I don't blame
people
for
are
wanting
tired
to
of
split.
subsidizing the craziness
Yes.
and the total disregard for the law and sanctuary cities
Exactly.
and homeless encampments and all of the above with their hard-earned taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Squandered.
It should split.
So let me ask you, Dana, is this the case where, President Trump has a lot of anger at California sanctuary cities, the way they deal with immigrants and all the like? So is this like grievance politics from the Republicans saying, oh yeah, we'll break up
I don't think this is all that new. I lived in San Diego only for 3 years, but I remember that this theory has been out there for a while, and Tim Draper, who's the Silicon Valley billionaire who came up with this idea or pushed it through, said, if you split it up, you'll get better infrastructure, better education, and lower taxes. I don't know all the details, but has California become too big, and is it ungovernable? Perhaps. And maybe if this is the time for us to think creatively about things and disrupt things, I guess they'll have a discussion. It only has about 17% approval right now.
Yeah.
But it would take maybe 4 times to get this on the ballot unless a new governor makes things all better.
Perhaps you should come on the 5 and on the Daily Briefing to discuss this important question.
Yeah, but you got a powerful voice like Kimberly in opposition. What do you say, Jesse?
I'm against it for 2 reasons. 1, you have to add more stars to the flag. That's really annoying. And 2, it would give California 4 extra senators, probably all Democrats, and this country.
Jesse, just kick out 3 states. Kick out 3 states.
Okay, who do we go? Let's go.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to get letters.
Just kidding. We love Vermont.
You may have to do a book tour there.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be doing a book tour there.
Why not? Really?
Even I haven't done a book tour there.
They may not show up.
I've done a book tour in Vermont. But I will say, a word for California. They're the 6th largest economy in the world. Most billionaires of any place live there. So, California, I understand your problems. One more thing. It's up next.
That was nice.